and what it truly means to build in today's world. And today's conversation brings that vision to a global scale. I'm excited to welcome Erila. She's the Chief Operations Officer and Director of Partnerships at the Global Innovation Management Institute, the world's largest certifying body for innovators, where she leads a global ecosystem spanning 33 certified training partners, 18,000 plus members, university think tanks, and innovation communities across 6 continents. Wow, it's amazing. She's also the founder of Voice of Women in Innovation, a global network advancing women's participation in innovation leadership and decision making. So her work sits at the intersection of systems, equity, and execution, bridging institutions, industries, and individuals to make innovation more accessible, structured, and really inclusive, right? So such an important topic and theme that we're going to be talking about today. So what makes this conversation especially aligned is that we both believe in that innovation only matters when it's accessible, not just exclusive, right? Gender equity is not a side initiative. It's actually very important. It's a performance driver. And global impact requires collaboration across, time zones and different cultures and different sectors. I want to see how we can really make that powerful. So in this episode, we're exploring what it truly takes to build innovation at scale and how to design ecosystems that are both high performing and deeply inclusive, right? So welcome, Erila. Lovely to have you on the show.
A pleasure, Vena. A pleasure to be here with you.
Amazing. I love this. So let's get started. We'd love to get into your journey. So when you look at your career and where you started from, and from non-profit impact work to leading global innovation networks, what was that thread that connects everything?
Yes, thank you, Vena. Actually, when I look back, I started in the development sector and also startup ecosystem, basically, where I was supporting startups, social enterprises, entrepreneurs to set up their enterprise, to fund them, to mentor, train them. I was also doing lots of research on that topic, which was social entrepreneurship. It was a little bit kind of new at that time, and also worked a lot with non-for-profits about innovating their business model, how to sustain themselves in the market, corporate social responsibility, venture philanthropy, crowdfunding, all these topics. And then, as you mentioned, I went into innovation management world, consulting, but also working with this Global Innovation Management Institute, which is a large certifying body on innovation management, but also it's a big network of which brings together innovation professionals. Now, if you think, and of course, other kind of more smaller experiences that I had, I was teaching in the academia also for 6 years. I had some experiences in also private sector corporates, but also public sector, very small ones. And I understood that I like connecting people, bringing people together, and I like innovation to bring something new, not to the world necessarily, but to that region or to that kind of domain and impact. Okay, so I want to impact people in the end. And I thought, hey, this is why I have done what I have done, and everything makes sense in the end, even though if you think about it, probably these are different things that you have done. I see those connected, and the thread that connects those, whether it was about startups, ecosystem, green startups, social enterprises, non-for-profits, to right now at a different scale with GIMI, with VOWI, where I'm still connecting people across boundaries, across geographies. I'm bringing them towards the right ideas, and I'm helping them innovate in a structured way to create, again, outcomes which are good for both business, but also a broader impact for their countries. For example, when it comes to our partners that we have in GIMI, or when it comes to our professionals, to their companies, or to their communities, with different programs that we have, I have done. So turning innovation into something which is actually matters. So this has been pretty much what it has been the glue in my career.
Yeah, absolutely. I love how you just connected everything, right? So I love how you talked about the bigger picture. Like you said, at the end of the day, it's the connection, it's the people that makes it so powerful, and that something matters and impact, right? And that's why we're having this conversation, voices of impact. That's why I love how you're sharing your voice and how impact starts from. It happens in different ways. I loved how it's more global for you. We're talking in different, you're from a different country. I've also talked to people from different countries and we've connected in so many ways and impact in so many ways, even on voices of impact. And that's what it keeps, like you said, the glue, right? That's the thread. It doesn't matter what you're doing because I know most people get caught up in like the nitty gritty details, but which is important, the structure. But at the end of the day, it's that purpose, it's that mission, right?
Yeah.
That keeps things moving. And we're having that passion to keep rising together. So thank you so much for sharing that. I love what you're doing. So at what point did you realize that innovation without inclusion isn't sustainable?
Good point. Well, for a reason or another, as I mentioned, I've always worked with, even when I work with startups, right? I worked with green startups or social enterprises that they were having a certain impact. And even if we talk about startups in general, they are bringing something new to the world, new to the industry. That's impact in itself. Basically, they are helping a group of beneficiaries. Let's talk about fintech industry, right? For example, which I'm encountering more and more in Voice of Women Innovation Network that I founded. Also there was a time, and we'll talk about this probably, but that most of the products that we use are designed through male lenses, right? And sometimes there are many problems that women have in health, education, and all this that are not innovative at all. So women basically were trying to solve these issues. And this was the moment that this fintech industry emerged. This is a huge impact. It's impacting 50% of the population, which is women. As we have startups or social enterprises or even companies which are impacting communities, indigenous people or other communities by the work that they are doing. Even in cases that we see this as commercial, still they are employing many people.
Yeah.
That in itself, I think it's so important, basically. So I think there has been something that I've been always drawn to impact. If there was a project, for example, that I didn't see something, it was theoretical. It wasn't put in practice. It wasn't implemented. I felt like this is not for me. There were, for example, many researchers. I used to do also this kind of being a researcher at European level about many topics, which I like. The fact that because I'm curious, I like to research and find new stuff and facts and data, and these are important for sure. But when I saw that some of these reports were staying on the shelves and people were not reading, you know what I'm saying? And kind of there wasn't an action afterward. I said, hey, that's why I've done kind of, even with teaching, I like because it impacts people, but I don't want to stay there. I want to do things because by doing things, you create impact. And this impact, then you can share in these researches, or you can share by teaching, or you can share like you are doing in this podcast. And this was one of the reasons, for example, I founded VOE, who's doing lots of kind of working in innovation as part of the consulting company. I'm a senior consultant, but also in GIMI, where I was impacting kind of many people, which kind of were innovation professionals, speakers, different kind of audience, but still a very large one. And I said, hey, I see a gap here. And when I was trying to find speakers, when I was trying to find partners, you might encounter the same. I'm curious also to know from you, but I was always bumping when it came to innovation to men, and I would say to gray hair men, because it was kind of, though they are the thought leaders of the field. There is a legacy from consulting, basically, that the partners usually are men, like we see in several industries, and they were the thought leaders. And it was normal when I was trying to find judges for the innovation awards and all this. I was always finding this, even when I was in meetings, whether it was in Norway or in Brazil or somewhere else. I was the only one, or sometimes one or two women, and I felt like a little bit bad. I didn't see this as a privilege. I said, like, there is something wrong in here. Where are the women? Because I'm sure there are many women who are chief innovation officers, you know, or are leading things. And this was one thing, right? And the other thing was when I was doing some speeches or research, I saw this, that most of the products we use are designed for men and not for women, basically, even though the women comprise 90% of purchasing decisions are made by women. And I thought, like, even healthcare, if you go to healthcare, that's kind of one of the most, women diseases are one of the most under-researched, basically, diseases. Women are so underrepresented in clinical trials. And healthcare is one of the most important, basically, industries. It's about your life, right? And I saw that probably 2-3% of funding was going to maternal, reproductive health issues. And this is so important because you are bringing life to this world and planet, and nobody cares. So all these issues made me understand that, hey, I need to create probably a network with all these women, where do these women are, startup founders, chief innovation officers, even consultant or research or innovation, that when, first of all, minimum network with each other. Second, when they need kind of expertise, we find them. And it's not about, sometimes we talk about this equality or having in panels half women, half men. It's not about that, really, but innovation is about diversity. You need all the voices, going back to the name of your podcast, you need all the voices to come together and to bring ideas, because an idea that a man has obviously is different than what a woman has. That's why I said, hey, we need to build this network in order to increase more women representation in innovation teams, but not just innovation teams where they are designing products, but also in decision making.
Yeah.
Because who decides about things is so important, because that's where the inclusion starts.
Yeah, absolutely. I love this. And I love how, like, anyone who's listening, please check out VOWI, because I think it's very powerful what you're doing and it's very inspiring. And I do agree, because I've talked to a lot of men lately, and I know here especially, it's a male dominated industry, whether it's tech or healthcare, and we're always underrepresented. Someone was just telling me, like, CEOs were only like not even 5% or even 1% of the leaders, right? And that's why I'm also passionate about women empowerment ever since I started my company. When I was young too, like, some part of me was, I was coming from that background too. I come from a very male dominated household. And I was like, I didn't have a voice, which is why I started this. And I'm also building an ecosystem as well. And we all bring women together. And I was talking to some men about, hey, let's build a community, collaborate. And they weren't interested. They were like, let's just focus, purely on, like, revenue and get to the next step. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that. But to your point, women have gifts, and we like to lead with integrity, lead with clarity, lead with intuition, lead with that presence and innovation. I love how you said it's a diversity of voices and doing that globally, right? And that global collective. I've talked to so many women from Africa. My own team is from Africa right now, and I've learned so much from them and how they think, right? My own clients are outside of the US, and I was like, how much of like work, like, I literally learned so much from them, to the point that I've kind of embodied a new version of myself. There are new values that I have and what I bring of more diversity. So in my own ecosystem, I have people who are from every part of the world, and we have different voices. And I love how you talked about inclusion, diversity, DEI in every aspect. So being a woman of color, we didn't have that privileges, right? And that's what's so powerful. And it is sustainable, right? Because, people who don't have that inclusion or diversity, it might fall. It looks nice on a surface level, like, hey, we're getting straight into the revenue or all of that. And, we're not, it's just the same things in the market where, but when they don't have innovation, it kind of falls apart, right? So that's why it's very important to focus on.
And if I can mention also something, Vena, because you said it clearly, by being a woman with color, kind of, I've seen basically how sometimes you don't have a voice, or is much harder than anyone. By being a woman in itself, it's harder.
Yeah.
By being a young woman, it's even harder. By being, for example, a young woman with color, it's even more harder. And all these things, and if you've seen everywhere, when it comes to organizations which are driving social impact, or networks or ecosystems, you see women, or you see other communities who are kind of leading those, who are creating, because probably they didn't find themselves into the spaces that exist.
Right.
And they created their own. Same thing what happened with fintech. They created their own to solve their own issues, because nobody was caring about that. That's why I believe, going back to your question, how did you discover the impact? I think just by being a woman, you encounter challenges from the moment you get, basically, you are born till later on, in college, and when you work. Despite privileges you might have, I do believe every woman finds this, and if you are extra aware of what is happening around, that triggers you. And you have this urge, hey, I have to do something to impact others. And this is how I felt.
Yeah, exactly. It comes from within, right? You kind of do your own research, your own growth. And that's how I found mine, which is my soul's purpose, is to make an impact because I didn't have that, right? And, not everyone has those experiences. That's why we're here as trailblazers. I love how you said when we go through it ourselves, yeah, every woman goes through challenges. And then if you're a woman of color and you have all of these things, and it's harder to go into like a company and then go like I have heard many, stories about being promoted. Like I didn't get that director role, I didn't get that VP role, but I know I'm talented. I know I can bring to the table. And they would have their own communities. Like I was part of Women Tech Network for a long time, and I was inspired on how she herself built it on her own and talking about leadership and women of color and every type of woman, right? That was like she didn't have the opportunities as well. It was a very male dominated thing. I was part of those groups and startups as well. I was always part of startups and how she scaled it. And that inspired me to start my own. And I think that's why we're having this conversation. Whichever woman who's listening, like rather than just, staying back and like, hey, I were not able to make an impact, I would love for someone to just start their own, right? And be that trailblazer and that change maker and bring in more inclusion and diversity. If you feel a voice, you see, you talk to a lot more people, bring the people into a network and, talk about these things, talk it out. I know we always hesitate. And I think men, it's like they have their own thing. I'm not against it, but the world is changing. And a woman, it's powerful when we get together and we rise together and we work together. I just had a conversation with I call them soul sisters. We're part of the ecosystem. They're kind of helping me architect the whole thing together. And it was such a powerful 60 minutes, right? I got a lot of more, what's it called? Like just kind of insights from them, right? And how to like drive the direction of it. So kind of get together. And I know we have that as women, we tend to kind of have that I want to do it by ourselves. But if you really value community, you'll realize like everyone's having a similar challenge.
Yeah.
But we want to even, Arila's organization, my organization, we're thinking partnering up ourselves, right? And I know there's so many organizations out there to anyone who's listening. So I would love for you guys to consider it and, have that sisterhood because, it's very, very powerful and we can make a huge impact at scale, right? So it happens faster. So thank you so much for sharing that. And I love to also talk about, I know a little bit kind of a continuation of this conversation. So when entering new countries or say new markets for like a startup or an organization, what determines whether that innovation ecosystem will thrive or fail?
Good point. Basically, let me take my example with Global Innovation Management Institute, since we have, as I mentioned, 33 partners all around the world in 6 continents. And to build this global innovation infrastructure, there have been a couple of things that has helped us. One is a shared language methodology. And GIMI, Global Innovation Management Institute, what we have is intellectual property when it comes to innovation management. So we have a methodology and a framework, how you do innovation, how you build innovation management systems, how you drive ideas to the market. And that methodology is powerful because it has been applied to different sectors, different sizes of organizations. So there is proof until that got, let's say, codified in a framework and in a methodology that can be used by everyone. So by having this, it helps a lot every organization, all our training partners who are getting our license to innovate everywhere in the world. It allows people to speak the same language inside one company, but also across different companies inside a country, but is even much more impactful if this is across the world. And you might have heard about ISO, for example, which is doing this in innovation. Innovation was a domain that for a long time there was this kind of myth that cannot be standardized, cannot be managed. But yes, innovation in itself, but innovation management can be managed, can be standardized, and you need to give a methodology for people inside a company, organization, ecosystem to innovate. And that has been the first a fundamental thing. Second, finding strong local partners with global alignment. So we understood that you can't innovate across the world by being a company or organization in US. You need to find these local partners who know the context. As you mentioned, in Africa, we have in Ghana, we have in Nigeria, we have in Europe, Norway, we have in Australia. So all these countries, they have similar challenges, yes. But on the other hand, they are quite different. So when you go to Africa, there is lots of, you have to invest more on social innovation. So we are doing, we've done programs to innovate or to embed the innovation mindset for kids at earlier ages, because that's where you can start build this new generation of action leaders and social entrepreneurs. Then when you talk about Middle East, their governmental innovation is so strong. It's top at the top. It's a strategic imperative, you know. So US, of course, corporate innovation, startup ecosystem. So depending on the country and their challenges, that's why you need the local partners, because they will focus on one segment, which is key, important, or what we call a sweet spot to innovate and make impact for their countries. That's also important. Third one is the capability building at all levels. So what I've learned is that innovation cannot sit at the top. Definitely. You need to start innovation from the top. If the leader is not aligned, for example, in a company or government, nothing will happen. And we have seen how that falls apart. But you need to build the capability at mid-level. You need to build a capability across functional teams and also for the rest of the organization. They need to understand innovation. Otherwise, you might articulate as a leader, as a chief innovation officer, but nobody else will respond to that. Or they won't know how to drive an idea to a prototype, for example. And then I think it's a connected community with a thought leadership layer or knowledge layer, I would say. So what does that mean? In GA, for example, we built a community of not only training consulting partners who kind of were trained on, we trained them on innovation, or they were kind of did some work on innovation to work on different countries. We had a think tank with 200, 300 speakers who are thought leaders on innovation or verticals, basically, or different trends. And they speak every week in GIMI, and there is so much of leadership produced in there, which helps all these partners and members. We have 18,000 members who are innovation professionals. They are practitioners, and they are there, and we learn a lot from them because they have the challenge. They work in the front line with corporates, with governments, and all. So leaders on one side, of course, the one who created GIMI were thought leaders coming from the consulting and innovation practice, and they are always thinking what's next and what else. The think tank, the members who are the practitioners, basically, and eventually the alumni that we certify are the practitioners itself. And then we have the capability building partners who are kind of multiplying this all across the world in different countries. So it seems like different kind of communities, but you need them. You need the practitioners to tell you what is happening right now. You need the thought leaders who, with years of experience, they are always at the forefront, thinking a little bit ahead, right? What is happening next and all this. And then ultimately, you need proofs. So you need to, GIMI itself, for example, we have worked with big corporate like Fortune 100 companies. We have worked with SMEs, building some of the biggest accelerators in different countries. We work with government, with helping them create their frameworks, Peru, Dubai, Qatar, other countries. And we've worked with universities to teach this to the new generation. Even I mentioned to the high schools. So you need these proofs from different sectors or segments to make sure that this methodology works.
Yeah.
And that's where all this becomes real, and it's not just theoretical.
Amazing. Wow, amazing. And first of all, kudos to you for building such a global network and very innovative
It's not me only.
and everything, right? Like, I just love how you talked about the partnerships. First of all, anything that, innovation's one aspect of it, but in order to make it, like you said, surreal and practical and sustainable, it needs a framework or methodology. And I love how you talked about that because that was actually my next question with the core pillars was the methodology, right? And there's a framework to keep things in place, right? A solid structure to build it. Because innovation visionary, that's one aspect. And I was telling my team a similar thing that I might be good at the visionary, but there's the architects and the builders and making sure it's set in place and then coordinating it with the whole other countries globally, right? So I love how you talked about that. And that's very, very key because a lot of women who are the change makers and visionaries, they're like, well, let's just focus only on that. It will happen maybe. And I think that's where there's uncertainty and that might be, it might thrive and it might fail. There's a good chance it might like fall apart. So the method and the framework is what keeps it solid, that infrastructure. So I love how you said that. Strategic partnerships is a key thing. And partnerships from different countries, like I can't emphasize how much I was part of Women Tech Network and I was a global ambassador, right? So anyone who is building an ecosystem have like a thought leaders, right? Speakers. And that's why Voices of Impact is here, even on Sovereign Rise that I'm building. We always have master classes. I bring in collaborators, actually bring in some people who you feel like would collaborate from different aspects. Like I had someone who came into this Voices of Impact. She's from Spain. And I felt like she gave very nice different insights that I didn't even know about. Right. And I also got some feedback on from someone who's from a very different country. Right. So everyone thinks differently.
Yeah.
When you collaborate, you also realize that, sometimes like their strengths are actually what I need. I love how you talked about that. Like we do need them. So we think of people when it comes to like, used to think like, oh, there's like competition. They are doing better than me, this country. And we just stick to the US and within that local thing. But really, honestly speaking, I gotten the most impact from other countries and when we actually work together. So their perspective, their strengths were my shortcomings and vice versa. And we were able to help each other because we need each other at the end of the day. And even globally, right? And, we look at the news, all of that, like US is going into the Middle East and all of that, right? So it's very similar and strategic partnerships. Having thought leaders, different types of partnerships, right? Like I love how you talked about speakers, thought leaders, Fortune 500 companies, corporates, and startups. Corporates have a different way they see things versus startups have different things because I worked in both aspects and I was a career coach before I started this business coaching. And corporates, they think differently. Right. And they were like more tech and AI and the nitty gritty details. I was more of a startup founder. I saw the visionary piece of it, the bigger picture, but we need both. Right. And then we worked together. It was a success. Right. So we need different types of people in different domains and different sectors. And this is not about like, oh, one is better than the other. We all need each other. We all have a mission. At the end of the day, it goes into that mission and purpose, but in
Mm.
different ways, in different forms. Right. And that's what will thrive. Right. And it's also a mindset thing too. Like I said, and how we see it as it's a collaboration, it's a community. So these things will make sure that if something is, and I love how you talked about, my mentor also said, innovation is like, we call it the blue ocean. It's very something that's unique. What are our zone of geniuses, right? So every organization, every collaborator, every ecosystem builder has different strengths and unique value, and we all bring that to the table and help each other out, right? And that's what makes it very successful, right? So I love how you just really said all of that in a nutshell. And so thank you so much. And it shows that you're a successful ecosystem builder. So going into another thing that I have. So I know that, some like mission organizations are mission driven and they're not profit, but say someone is for profit leader. So in global collaborations or organizations, how do you balance that mission alignment with the financial sustainability? Because I know that's a question that I keep getting from people.
It's hard. We see this, for example, in GIMI, which we are non for profit registered because we have this mission of democratizing innovation worldwide. But on the other hand, we have to work to kind of gain revenues or get the financial stride in order for us to build a leadership, to bring these networks together, to create new products, to bring the best of the best, basically to create programs and every activity. In the end, we know that has a cost. What you are doing has a cost. The network I'm building has a cost and time that you have to spend. So all of this minimum, you have to have a operating budget basically to do what you can do. And as bigger is that budget, as better I think you will perform and you will drive the quality and the standard of the things. So I know there is this perception of, hey, when it's, and I've worked also in non-for-profits, so I know this very well. Many non-for-profits in different regions depend a lot on grants from donors, right? European Commission, embassies, World Bank, these kind of donors. But we saw what happened, a while ago in US, where they cut funding of USAID and other institutions, and there was a survival moment for many of these non-for-profits. And what they didn't, most of them, I bet they weren't thinking in their strategic planning, what is my diversification strategy? Which means, what else can I do to sustain my services? And I worked a lot in this about working with non-for-profits to change this mindset of just depending on donors, because that's kind of a resource that might end at some point, as we have seen. And what will happen? Are you going to serve to your beneficiaries anymore? Are you going to do what you are doing? No, most probably, if you are not thinking ahead. So there are different ways. And we worked back then to create what we are called fee for services or revenue generating activities. So probably as a non-for-profit, you have a capability, I'm sure. Like some of those were training different youngsters, for example, or empowering them. Some of them were empowering micro owned basically entrepreneurs. Some of them were good on green startups or social enterprises. For example, I saw non-for-profits helping women victims of trafficking basically, and were serving to them. And they started to think differently, create an activity or a social enterprise, a baker, or doesn't matter, where these women can have a job. And now what do? You create a much more impact with these women, rather than just sheltering, but also you are kind of creating a new revenue stream for your organization to keep doing what you are doing, but also to scale. Again, I took a random example. There are some other organizations which are probably more market driven, which not necessarily depend on donors. They have membership fees. For example, are a certifying body. So people are paying for the certificates. That's our main revenue stream. Normally, we have also memberships. So there is a membership fee. And I know there is always people who come and say, can I get a scholarship? Can I do this? And of course, we have also these options for students. We provide scholarships, certain communities. We have downloads for free and all this kind of stuff. Always that can be done, but I don't believe you can do things or you can achieve your vision or you can serve to your mission without having the resources and even having the right people. To have the right people, you have to pay, because everybody in the end have to live. So all this is connected, this cycle of life, and I don't see anything wrong. I don't know why this perception is created. I don't know, probably the fact of saying non-profit, there is a mistake. Yes, you might be non-profit, doesn't mean that you will make profit in the end of the year, or even if you make profit, you can redistribute that or profit to or reinvest that to your activities, but you need revenues to survive or to do the activities you are doing. And I think there is a misconception in also the terminology we use.
Yeah, absolutely. And you just hit the nail on the head on that, because I know there's like a nonprofit's mission, but then, okay, why am I paying for this? Or like the profits are just, money driven, market driven, like you said, but it's like, it's kind of this or that. And that's why I wanted to kind of break the stereotypes that you can have both. And I love how you talked about grants. Grants is another thing that one of my, collaborators, she was saying that that's a good piece of a thing that you could get more financial stability and resources. A thing that I'm doing with Sovereign Rise is, yes, of course, I have a collaborator. We kind of lead with the mission first, right? So I always say that when it comes to like your vision or mission, if you're a purpose driven leader, what does financial stability look like? Sustainability? What does financial freedom look like for you? You have to define that success for you. it doesn't look like the same for other people. And I love how you talked about diversification because that is really what it is, financial freedom. It can come in different ways. We have like a set way that this is what's going to happen. We have like, I'm from the coaching industry. So we have one-on-one coaching and then 3-month coaching. It doesn't always have to be like that. You can scale it when you're kind of serving and impacting like 50 or 100 people at once. And I love how you talked, like Arilla, about membership. So there's a free tier, right? I also want to make an impact for people who are like, hey, like I really need this, but maybe I just am not in the place to pay for this. So always have like a free tier, but always have a tier for membership. So having different types of tiers for master classes or speakers, also different tiers, right? So there's different ways. I also do paid speaking, right? You can also yourself put yourself out there and do paid speaking. So having passive income streams, evergreen content. So within that main community membership, within that, you can still have your, passive income streams and diversify it. Right. And it might be small, like, minimal in the beginning, but we're talking about sustainability, which is right. You're not going to get so much of revenue in the beginning because this is a mission driven. But later on, when you look at over time, it's going to be reoccurring revenue and it will just keep increasing. So, I think people, like you said, do have that misconception because everyone nowadays are like, how do I get money so quickly? How do I get revenue so quickly? And then it falls apart. So, it really depends on if you want both. Lead with the mission and with the faith, right? That you're here to truly make an impact. And when you truly make an impact, the people who see that and feel it, not everyone is going to stay and pay, right? But the right ones and the right people who are aligned, they'll be like, I love your presence. I love your energy. This is really impacting me. I myself might want to pay for this membership, right? So that's kind of the mindset shift that, like I love Irela said, that we need to go in. So I just wanted to kind of give that clarity to people who are listening that it's okay to have a nonprofit and it's okay to have a for-profit who's also mission driven, right?
Yeah.
And you can have both. And anyone who's doing a community that's for profit, you deserve to get paid for your work. And if you can, there are a lot of resources, but that's why
And
we're here to collaborate. Yeah.
And just to mention something also I've seen is what happens, for example, Bowie communities for free, something volunteering I'm doing on the side. But I've seen this in GIMI, in Bowie, and everywhere else and where I've started the community or I've been part of that community. When there are things which are totally for free, people also will misuse it.
Yeah.
Uh, and for example, you are putting together an event and they won't show up,
Exactly.
which is a typical thing that happens. You are putting together a masterclass or training, they won't show up. And I've seen even when people pay something, they still do that. Imagine now when they don't pay that there is no skin in the game, so they won't do it. So you build all these things to help them, to support them. And it frustrates me a little bit, right? When I see people not taking use or leveraging that. And I know we live in an era of distractions, of where people are doing multiple things for living, but also they have passions and obligations and all this kind of stuff. And particularly women wear many hats, as we know. And if they are moms, if they are wives, if they are daughters, and all this, there is kind of a you have different responsibilities, right? And it's tough for you to be everywhere and do everything. I know that for sure. But I've seen women, and not all the women, but everyone who are busy and they are still respecting
Yeah.
the time of somebody else. So if you are part of a network or community, respect that time and at least show up in particular or important meetings, events, depending on what are the activities, right? Or might be a collective effort of writing an article or something like that. Be clear right up front, because I know people want, why not being part of this community? It's good. I can put in my, in my LinkedIn and all this kind of stuff. But then they don't want the responsibility which comes to it. But there is nothing in this life that doesn't come, even if it's for free, doesn't come with a responsibility, right? Really, to put it in this way, I'm sometimes frustrated about people not leveraging the opportunities that somebody has spent time, effort, putting this together. Like imagine somebody does a show up in your podcast
Yeah.
and you have done all this effort. It's nerve-wracking because they, hey, I did all this work beforehand and they are not showing up. So I know it's clear expectations up front, but sometimes people won't read that because doesn't feel important for them and all this. Again, I'm bringing here a point that I've seen this, to be honest, with everyone, despite generations. But I see this even more with the new generation that is coming. And this is even when they are paid. So sometimes I don't respect the time or the effort of somebody. And really, the responsibility which comes with it, you need to honor that, to know that that exists and be clear right up front. It's better to say, hey, okay, thank you for this. I don't have any time, or I have X percentage of time to do this, and don't come back to me to say, oh, why you weren't here at all, because I made it clear right up front. So I think this is important, and I see this less and less in people, as I've seen on the other side. As I mentioned, people who are very busy. I've seen great women who are very busy. They were doing 2, 3 things, but also being part of the communities, volunteering, because they are usually what I say, the innovators. They get energy
Right.
from people. They get energy from the communities. They get energy from conversation. An idea pops up. And they
Yeah.
say, oh, let's do this. I'm going to lead this. So these people are few, so rare. But when you find them, work with them. Work side by side, because they are
Yeah, absolutely. And I love how you brought this up because I've had many people actually on this podcast who didn't show up and I put a lot of effort. And I want to say one thing as the ecosystem builders and shapers, I was telling my own team yesterday, the collaborators, it's very important for us to also vet and make sure they're truly aligned and ask the right questions. Anyone who I bring in as a collaborator or member, I literally go through one on one. I take the time to do this. I literally ask, like, how much time can you commit to this? Or, and my mentor would always tell me, you would be like when you talk to a potential client or a collaborator or a community, always ask, are you interested or committed? Are you committed to your growth? And to your point, when things are free, I had a lot of people who didn't show up who would say, because they were interested. But when you give, like, even if it's a small fee, people take it the wrong way, like, oh, you're kind of money minded. I'm not interested. But in reality, what we're trying to say is we ask for fees or like just a little bit just because it's a kind of like an exchange of energy and a commitment to your growth. This is for you, right? It's not for me, right? So if you're committed to your growth as a woman and you want to rise, that's why we bring in these membership things. It's not to say like, oh, we're just interested in building revenue. And that's kind of like a mindset shift that I want to kind of put out there. And it's very important for leaders and the ecosystem founders or their creators to ask the right questions. So I get on calls for a reason. We call it an alignment call. And I ask questions like, why do you want to be a collaborator? What does Sovereign Rise mean to you? What does this mean to you? What is it? How does this align with your vision and your business? It kind of gets me deeper. And I see how they're answering these things. What's their energy like? Do I want to work with this person? Right. So as leaders, we need to also do that too. Yeah, some people, you're going to have members or collaborators who are not going to show up, are not going to take it seriously, who are not going to be respectful. But it's our job to understand how to bring in more aligned leaders. And that's when we ask the right questions, right? And it's very important. And then I love how Erila said, there are a lot of communities I've been part of, like Women Tech Network, business mentors, that I've learned so much, whether it's free or paid. So anyone who's listening, please take these things like a little seriously and use it wisely, right? We're just here to we bring in so many speakers, we put in the effort because, we want to make sure it's a different paradigm of leadership now. We're trying to make leadership easier for everyone out there, right? This is not about your bro marketing or like your typical like work hustle grind, right? And I will like make your life easier. And that's why we're here to do to make an impact. So, whoever's listening, please, take the time to at least try it, right? And, take it a little more seriously because I know a lot of communities I've been really changed my life. It's
yeah.
amazing. Amazing. Love how you explained all of this. This has been a great conversation. So, what's next for you, Arilla? Any new program initiatives or expansions of the OWI? What's next?
Well, for example, in Global Innovation Management Institute, we just launched the Global Innovation Awards, and this is third year consecutive year that we are doing this. It's an amazing event. Of course, there is a process behind before the event where we are kind of getting applications for the Innovator of the Year, most innovative innovation hub, most innovative public company, private company. So there is 10 categories there to recognize these innovators. There is a great pool of judges who are distinguished thought leaders on innovation area that we have selected carefully. There's a great initiative that we just launched. It will happen in Boston, the event. So if you are there, please pass by. But I definitely like any startup companies, governments to apply with their innovations. I know innovation sometimes tends to be a lonely space for innovators themselves, so they don't have somebody to applaud their work because it's so in the future. You know, nobody knows how that would materialize, doesn't bring cash right now, and all this. So they need this recognition
Yeah.
to prove that what they are doing is amazing, and that's why we did this and came with this. So everybody was looking forward of this third call that we had for application. So that's kind of something new. And definitely we are looking to expand a little bit more for this year. The leadership team is moving from strategic uncertainty to certainty with AI. So what AI has done right now is you can, by having a methodology like GIMI has, now with the help of AI, and we have built AI-enabled innovation ecosystem, you can produce insights much faster, much cheaper, and better. Now, out everybody can predict the future a little bit better with the help of trends and the help of AI. And also that's something that we are working a lot. And I really encourage everyone to don't take this AI thing easily. Take it seriously. It's changing the game, is disrupting lots of industries.
Yeah.
I would say every industry. And really learn about AI agents, how you build, how you automate your work, be on top of that. And that's also one AI masterclass that we are going to bring for our innovators in June, how you can become a certified practitioner on building AI agents. So these are a few initiatives. And of course, on VOE, we are trying to grow a little bit more. We have created clusters, healthcare, tech, and innovation, digital transformation, AI, corporate innovation, and venturing. And I encourage anyone who is in the innovation, any vertical, to join us and to do more about this issue, and to write more, to echo more these issues that I mentioned, like products that are not designed for them, or to industries completely that are not taking into consideration women needs. And I think it's time to talk about these issues and to help each other to take action, to go to the finish line and release these products or services which are solving women's needs.
Amazing. Wow, a lot of great initiatives. And I love how you're doing the awards because when I was part of Women Tech Network and a lot of organizations, I was also part of like featured nominated for awards. And that kind of like, it really helped boost my leadership and confidence because there are people out there, women out there who are still in doubt, right? Have imposter syndrome. They still are like, I don't know if I'm doing okay, if I'm making the impact. So getting that recognition from other women and the fact that you are making impact and you are needed through awards helped me a lot. It was a game changer for me, right, in the past 5, 6 years. And that's how I built the credibility and authority for my business. And that's where I'm here today, right? And from thought leaders. And you can also bring your own organizations, but those things are important. So I love how you're doing the awards. And of course, like, AI is a huge thing. I've been very, focused on AI in the back end, especially. So, yeah. And then the back end is AI. I use it for my own team. I use it for the automations. I also use AI agents, but that's for the back end, especially for social entrepreneurs. That's very important. So, I love how Irila said that we're not just focusing on AI as a trend, but it is needed. Everyone should use it to make their life easier and make it more seamless, especially entrepreneurs, right? And I know a lot of people are still not using it to its maximum potential and wisely. So I really recommend that. I'm currently using Google Gemini. I use even now Lindy AI. Right? Some people struggle to delegate to a team if you don't have the financial resources. Lindy AI is definitely a similar type of VA or assistant that could help. And it's changed my life even now. Because you know how it is with women, like Erila said, we wear so many hats. Some of us are mothers and we just have so much, sometimes just typing, hurts my hand, right? So you kind of delegating that so that you can be in your zone of genius and really have that connection and be that woman that can really, make a true impact. But you need to have that back end ready to go. So, absolutely, totally, 100% agree with all of this. I love what you're building. So, where can people connect or join the broader innovation community, BOWI, that you're building?
Thank you, Vena.
Where can they join? So, where can people connect and join?
So, Voice of Women Innovation, we have a LinkedIn page, we have a website as well, and they can just reach out to the page or even contact me about that. And definitely, I'll share the link for them to apply and see if that fits. They are really, it's part of their mission. We have always an alignment meeting to discuss about what are the rights and what are also the kind of some obligations as a member, taking into consideration this is something for free. So yeah, that's the thing. And same thing for Global Innovation Awards or the master classes, contacting GIMI. We have a website and get a page, info at Global Innovation Management Institute.org. But also by simply contacting me, I can help them.
Amazing. I love that. Please connect with Irilla on LinkedIn. It's a great initiative. So kudos to you and your team. And I'm sure it's already successful and I'll just go to heights. Right. So I love what you're doing. And thank you for inspiring every other woman out there. So going into a fun rapid fire round, a few questions. Let's see. So quick answers, no overthinking. So let's see, a country that changed your perspective on life.
Tough question, but I think US has been one because of the rapid and fast-paced environment that it is, and I think I found myself. I got connected because I am like that, very fast-paced. I want to do many stuff. Things move fast, and I don't find that in Europe, for example, happening. It's much slower. So definitely, every country has its own magic, and you learn a lot. But I think that I connected a lot with the pace of that country.
Yeah, and I can actually say the opposite way because I've been here my whole life and it's too fast paced. So I talked to a lot of people in Europe, but I visited like most of the countries in Europe. And I was like, I just visited like Austria recently, and I just loved how they're just slowing down and really being in the moment and being present. So, I mean, as we mentioned before, I think we learn from each other, right? We need both, right?
I think it's a combination of all. I am more working remotely. So I like the fact right now that everybody can be a digital nomad and you can work from Bali or Thailand. Southeast Asia is amazing, for example, or you can work from Spain or even from Albania, that is my country of origin, or everywhere. And I think the combination of all, because you can't find everything in one country, definitely.
Exactly. Yeah, you can get both. Like my parents were immigrants from India. And they came here, of course, in the 90s, and they were like, yeah, there's some things in India that I don't get here. And in US, it is a little bit of a lonely thing, especially East Coast, and it's very community driven in India. So I think, yeah, like you can't get everything in one country, but I like how we learn. We can always go to a different country and visit and learn about their culture and take what resonates. Right? So I love that. Amazing. And so if you're on the plane, so window seat views or aisle seat freedom, which one do you prefer?
Always windows.
Yeah.
I like the views. I think everybody is a little bit like that. Like there is I don't know, like sky and when you see the sea and everything, like it's always it's like a meditation for, and then it's the moment that you reflect and you are with yourself.
Yeah, I likewise. I'm always on the window seat. Sometimes I like the freedom of the aisle, but especially when I went to like Hawaii and like Switzerland, just going in that plane and seeing the mountains and the beach was really nice just on the window. Even now, I just went to Cali And I have to, I'm a photographer as well. I love taking photography in nature. And I just love, like you said, it just kind of brings like an inner peace when you're sitting
Yeah.
there. So, and one more question. So when you travel, one thing you always pack that's not really obvious.
Books for sure. So even though I have iPad and laptop with me, I always do work in the plane. Is the best moment where I am in the zone. But I think it's also the moment that I don't have much distraction and I
Yeah.
can read. And this is kind of something we are doing less and less right now. Even though I've been a reader since I was earlier a kid. My mom was kind of is a reader, and she taught me to read since a young age. But more and more with the time, because of the distractions, the technology right now, we hear podcasts, all this kind of alternative things. And I miss this, and I feel also bad that I'm not reading enough. So whenever I travel, I try to get that book that I still haven't read and spend some time reading.
Yeah, absolutely. I can really relate to this because I used to read a lot. I was always in the library when I was a kid. And to your point, distractions of the laptop and the phone. Actually, like I just even now, like just close my eyes and read a book, or I was just listening to some music or just sleeping, right? And just way away from the distraction. So I love how you do that. It's a really good habit. And just and even now I went to a restaurant recently and they were still on the phone rather than being present. And I think that's why it's very important to kind of go away from that and go within yourself, spend the time, quality time with your loved ones, or just work on a hobby, whether that's painting or knitting or gardening or just reading.
Yeah.
Right. So it's very, very important in this day and age that most people skip. Right. So amazing. Well, Irila, this was such a powerful way to close out season one. I love this episode and this conversation. So I love how you expanded this conversation beyond individual leadership, but into systems, ecosystems, global impact, and make it sustainable and easier, right, to scale. And that innovation is not just about ideas, it's about who gets access to build them. It's all building it together. And for everyone listening, this is a reminder that the future isn't built by a few. It's built by who we choose to include, right? It's all about global alignment and not just within our own little group, but expand it to other places and other countries and people. If this conversation resonated, share it with someone who's thinking bigger about leadership, who values community. They're at that stage and values global innovation, right? So, as we close out this season two of Voices of Impact will be back in just 2 weeks, and it's going even deeper. So, we'll be bringing in top leaders, more in depth stories. I already got a lot of people coming in and reaching out, and powerful real world insights you can actually apply, right? To the kind of conversations that don't just inspire, but truly shift how you think, lead, and build. And Sovereign Rise is something as a community global ecosystem I'm also building a space for leaders, visionaries, and builders who are ready to collaborate and lead in a way that's aligned, expansive, and impactful. So if you feel called, whether it's a community builder, a founding member, you want to be a partner, or even a speaker, we would love to connect. So just add me or connect with me on LinkedIn. And thank you for being part of this journey. Season one has been tremendously amazing. So I'm pretty sure it'll be very similar for season two. And thank you so much, Irela, for your beautiful presence and insights. And until next season, stay intentional, stay expansive, and keep creating impact that truly matters.